Hi everyone, welcome back to session 3 of my Porthleven 47. Yeah, we've got some dramatic changes. This beautiful liquid pink harbour shape which I've introduced. If you know my work, you're probably not all that surprised, but you know it's had a dramatic impact on the painting. And the way we left it the last session, we had this kind of made black shape, and I sent you a photograph of the painting as a landscape, which seemed to work best in my eyes. And but I just thought that the shape that we had was nowhere as strong as the shape in this drawing. And you know, at the end of the session, I was kind of fiddling around. You know, I haven't really sorted the shape out, so I think I've sorted that out now. But anyway, so in order to get this liquid pink shape down, I had to turn my canvas this way again. And it's a technique I've shown you all before. I kind of I knew pink would work. It always works with turquoise, so it's not much of a surprise. But I've got this new grey that I made, and I was looking forward to seeing the pink against the grey. Seems to do something that I like as well. So the action is, you know, you get a big pot and you get the consistency right. I've been doing this since art college, so takes a bit of practice. Get all the lumps out if you can. Find a colour that you like. Get enough of it, and of course, what you do with these sheets of paint, you use gravity. So basically what you're doing is applying the paint to the canvas and then allowing gravity, because the paint's quite liquid, allowing gravity to send the painting downwards. But you have to control where that paint goes, which direction it goes, and also adjusting as the paint moves downwards. So it's a bit of a skill, but it's worth a go. But what it means is, I mean, this technique came from screen printing at college. You know, if you've ever done screen printing, and you know you have an image and you have a squeegee and you put some ink on the forget what they're called now, and then you get the squeegee and you pull across, and you get this really you skim the ink across the image, and the image goes. So you've got this fantastic way of editing paint very quickly. So it's a similar thing where you can make dramatic changes to a painting. So this pink shape, you know, it takes up, you know, just under a third of the canvas. It's quite powerful. So I think it is as powerful as this. So I'll just kind of go through the process of doing this pink shape. So essentially, I had my canvas like this, propped up on the floor, and then the first mark was throwing the paint at the top of the painting. And what happens then, you get these beautiful curves. It's just the action of the arm. So you get these beautiful marks you can't possibly create with a paintbrush, really, because they're quite pure. So you get this beautiful curve, and then the paint starts to drip. So you're picking the canvas up and channeling it. And then I wanted my paint to drip this way, so I had the canvas on the wall to make sure the paint dripped at that angle like that. And you know, eventually, after about half an hour, I kind of was able to put it on the wall once the excess paint was dripped off, and then I can use the side of my hand and I'm pushing the paint around. And I had quite a lot of gaps in this pink, and so what I was doing was kind of filling the gaps and selecting which kind of shapes I thought were the most interesting. And what I've got is, I think I've got this beautiful shape here, so the pink itself is a beautiful shape. I've also got this one here. So, which, you know, in terms of Porthleven, you know, maybe it's one of those piers I keep going on about, but it works for me, and I'm not sure about this one or this one. So I took out 2 or 3 shapes, and I also had a very similar shape to this on that side, and I didn't like the symmetry, so I pushed the pink to get rid of that one. So I kind of made it more interesting. So this pink is a mixture of, you know, accident and design, and yeah, so it's very exciting at the moment. So once I did that pink, then I thought I need to go back to this representation of sea. So we had some quite violent mark making, and again, you've seen it in my, if you saw the Charlestown series, where I'm using big brushes and big knives and applying a lot of paint and pushing the paint and going back with a knife, taking paint off, and it's a process of action and reaction, and you're just trying to get something that's until you just feel that it's right. And you can see how violent my mark making was. I think, yeah, behind here we have you know, this mark actually came off the canvas, but I've got something now, and what is really exciting for me now is the flatness of this pink against this very busy mark making. You know, this represents, you know, the weight and power of the sea. So I'm trying to find something equivalent in paint, and you know, and what we've got now is you know, it's got the two sorts of water. It's got the water outside the harbour and the calmer water inside the harbour. So that's how I read this painting. So in terms of Porthleven, I'm not quite sure there's much reference to Porthleven yet, but you know, that's something to introduce. So anyway, I'm not going to have it this way around because I've been looking again today, and I've got an idea to pursue today with everybody, and so I'm just going to spin the painting around because there's different options depending on which way around you go. So if it was this way around, I'd need to work this side. I think it really does need some more, something that I'm not quite sure about yet, but it feels like a big hole in the painting. This and this I like, but anyway. So this side, interestingly again, very different. So this is a painting of a bridge, a bridge, you know, we've got this water going underneath this kind of space. But that idea looks too strong for me, so it's too obvious, and I'm not quite sure what it's to do with Porthleven. And you probably worked out that, you know, I'm not particularly interested in a single view. It's very rare I have a single view. I kind of like the bigger picture, and this seems to be boiling down to one aspect of Porthleven, and I'm sure I could make some additions to it, but it just doesn't really interest me. It's just sort of zoomed in on one little area, but I want something larger. I want to know what's over there and over there and behind me, all in the same painting, if that makes sense. So we disregard that one. So let's turn it this way. So we're back to this sort of K shape, but it looks too much like a K to me when we have it this way around, and it doesn't seem as successful as the reverse. Once again, I feel like I have to do some additions to the painting here. So, you know, we might go back to that. We'll see. So this is the way that that I like, and I think Faye likes this way as well. And the pink got a seal of approval from Faye, by the way. So, what do we have? We have this sort of reclining harbour shape, this kind of pink shape, possibility of piers, sea behind, and it just looks interesting and full of questions to me. It's in a landscape format, but you can't quite work out where you're stood or what's quite happening. And in terms of Porthleven, I think, well, first of all, the most important thing, of course, is how does this pink shape work in terms of the painting and work in terms of the composition? That's what we're trying to get resolved first. And I'm quite happy with the proportion of pink. I'm quite happy with how it sits, and I even like, it's a different shape that I'm working with. It's a different shape that I'm working with, so that's a real tick for me, a real plus point. And I was looking again at the painting this way, and I was wondering what I could do with this line, this horizontal line that's you know, it's almost parallel with the side of the canvas. And it's a problem I don't seem to have had in any of my other Porthleven paintings. So what do I do with it? What can I do? So in terms of what I've done before, you know, I could very easily get a brush now and kind of just draw a line through there and sort of make more and more of a curved shape, like this, or like the drawing here. But I think maybe that's something I've tried or done a lot of times. So let's find something else. So now I'm coming back looking at the painting. I'm coming back to these lines, these man-made lines, and it gave me the idea of once again the idea of cranes, which occurred in my Charlestown painting, and what the cranes do in a harbour landscape. They bring in some geometry. They bring in some straight lines and triangles. And something that's very different to all that weather and all that movement, you know, all that natural stuff. So they are really good devices to use. And so looking again at this horizontal, I thought, well, I started to think that this could actually be one of the piers because of this herringbone pattern. Almost like brickwork, or could be stonework. It could actually be one of the piers, and we're actually stood on one of the piers. And then I scraped some paint away here and brought this blue through. And you may remember I didn't like this ultramarine blue because it was too bright before. But I kind of like this more subdued mark. It's kind of pushed back a bit because it's caught some of the grey. So I've got this idea now of actually placing some cranes, some triangles on top of this pier. And in Porthleven, there's I've got to talk again about the geography of Porthleven. It's probably easier on looking at the drawing here. So I've mentioned before, Porthleven's built in the wrong place. It faces the prevailing wind. So they've built this double set of harbours. And these back harbours, this pair of harbours at the back, at high tide or when bad weather's coming, what they do, they block off this entrance. And what they do, they've got these really heavy pieces of wood and they slot them in the gap between the two piers, just to give a bit of protection to all the boats which tend to moor in this section at the back of the harbour. So these boards they're a real presence because when there is bad weather, you can hear them. You can hear them bashing against each other and bashing against the harbour wall. And you know there's danger in the air when the boards go up, and there's this sound as well. And you know, sometimes you watch the water come in and you wonder whether it's going to go over these boards into the back harbour. So there's a bit of drama and a bit of tension. But before that moment, if you're there at the right time, what you can see the boards actually being put in place by this crane that's on the end of one of these piers. It's quite dramatic. So they're put in one by one on top of each other until maybe, I don't know, eight boards or something, or 10 boards, one on top of each other, and they make a barrier. So it's quite dramatic seeing these huge pieces of wood suspended in the air and being you know, skillfully dropped into the slots which are in the piers. So I'm going to try and recreate that event in this painting in the next 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, whatever. So what I'm going to do, we've got a very long horizontal, so I'm going to split this horizontal in two with a gap between the two piers. And it seems obvious that this is going to be the gap. So I'm just going to draw a vertical here just to separate that from that and have a gap between, just one line. And I can't see if that's straight or not, but we can always adjust it later. And I thought I'd do my my cranes, which are basically like 3 triangles in a blue. So I'm gonna get a cobalt blue and just calm it down a little bit, and we'll use that as the colour. I need to add something to this bit of orange, maybe. Just a touch to take the edge off. Too much orange, more blue. So when I talk about mixing colour, I suggest you mix a tiny amount of your second colour. There we go, we got it at last. It's kind of the colour that I had in mind. So this is just cobalt blue with a touch of orange to knock it back, darken it slightly. You know, this is an uncompromising pink. It's very strong, it's in your face. And by putting these cranes on, it's just going to push it back into the painting slightly. So there'll be lines going across the pink, so just to push it back. And so here we go. So I'll draw the first line by hand. Then I might use rulers or sticks or something for the rest, but we'll see. So essentially with cranes, you've got the heavier structures, the metal poles, which are quite thick, and you get the more delicate lines, which are the kind of chains and wires. So we're going to put the strongest line in, which is a vertical. So I'm going to place it. There so happens to be a vertical mark already in the painting here. So I might, seems a good place. So I might just extend my line from this vertical. So I hope I get it straight. Well, I've mixed some pink anyway, if it's not quite how I want it. It's a bit thicker than I imagined, but I might fix that later. But for now, I'm gonna do this extension of the crane backwards, and we're going to use a thinner brush for that. So I'm going to use the edge of a piece of wood to get it nice and straight. So already we've got this angled line here, so I can do this line the same angle, or I could vary it slightly, or change the angle. So I'm just thinking about, do I want to mirror that angle or have it I'm going to change it. I'm going to have it like this. Here we go. So far so good. Okay. So if you go to Porthleven, you will see. Oh, by the way, this crane isn't there anymore. It was they've replaced it with something more modern and something that kind of tucks tucks away really, so you lose this permanent structure on the quayside. But if you go to Porthleven, you go into the fisherman's pier where the crane is, and you'll see a kind of concrete circle where the turn turbo used to be. So obviously this crane had an arm that kind of swung around, a to get stuff off the boats, but also to put these boards in place. So we're gonna do the extending arm now. So, but again, this can be any angle because it all depends on your viewpoint, what angle you see it at. So. You know, I'm not bothered if I change my mind. I can just pink it out and try another line as well. So, and I think that needs to be thicker. So I'm going to have this one as a pair of parallel lines, just to break it up slightly. I've actually invested in some riggers that actually keep their shape. I used to get these £1 throwaway ones where you got 2 or 3 goes and then you chucked them away. But these I've used a couple of times and they still keep their shape. So worth splashing out a few more quid, I think. Okay, so now we need the cable that comes down from this crane, which actually touches. So maybe this piece of blue will represent these boards that are put in place. So I'm going to bring a straight line down to the middle of this or to here, and to give the idea of this crane actually holding something. So I think this is important that this line is straight. So I'm going to use my ruler. Sorry for standing in the way, I'll move out in a second. So we'll just take a guess here. So. Using the printing technique. I'm just going to step back for a second and review my marks. The execution of the marks is not how I would like, but the idea and the placement of the marks, I think is very exciting. And I think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make this line a little bit stronger, make this line a little bit straighter, and consider putting in an extra line here. Because what happens is that this very tall pole is actually anchored by 2 further poles which go to either side of the pier, or it did in those days. So you would actually see a third line, and I'm going to try that first actually. So because that one's further away, it's not as thick as the other one. So okay, I haven't done so much today. So let's try and refine this crane, straighten these lines up. Make this one stronger. Can you see this, Faye, or am I in the way?
Yeah, you're fine.
And from memory, I seem to remember that this very tall vertical pole had a little box on the back. So I'm just going to just put something here. Yeah, maybe have a. Just a little detail to the profile. And from memory, there's also a wire that goes from this point to here as well, which helps the balance, I suppose. So let's do this very thinly. The key thing is this has to be straight, so I'm going to quickly pink it out and then do it again. Slightly different shade of pink. So the line has to be further this way to get it straight, so let's get my ruler. So the first line was just a guide, so we'll get it right this time. And I do like what it's done to the painting. So now we do have two viewpoints. We have this harbour shape, and we have the view from somewhere on the ground. So then we've got to decide whether it works or not. We can get this straight. That's a couple of marks. Just going to anchor the crane at the back. Just step back, and I think it's time to reflect and see if I've just wasted half an hour or whether it's actually moved the painting forward. I think it's going to work, and I think I felt these marks before had to go because this is the star. But by somehow by having this very graphic image, I think I can keep these. They're not as eye-catching as they were before. And I quite like this one line going through this one, and so let these imaginations go wild now. So this is the gap between two piers in Porthleven. This is the crane that no longer exists, historical, it's in my head, but there is photographic evidence, and it's in my early Porthleven paintings as well. And there's bad weather coming, and these boards are being put into place to protect the ships, and try and imagine that sound, that thumping sound of the boards. Till next time, bye bye.
Semi-skimmed. It's alright.
It's quite hard when you,
As long as it's not like lit, that's fine.
Two girls are straight, so it's okay though. I love the idea. It's actually works really well.
I love it.